Hello everyone. So this lab is lab 6 about AWS VPC, virtual private cloud. So we have shifted the actual lab 7 to lab 8 and lab 8 to lab 7 because there was a assignment deadline. So we moved this assignment first, like this lab first, and then the next lab is like Beanstalk and DynamoDB. So it will be in the next lab. So in this lab, you will learn about the main concepts of AWS VPC, and you'll know about how to deploy your services in a private subnet, like private because when you deploy your application, the backend service on the cloud, you don't deploy them in the public subnet. You don't want the backend APIs to have access to public. So what you do is like you deploy your front end to your public subnet, which is like the thing which outside people will use, and you will put your backend in a private subnet so that outside people can't use it, but your public subnet services can use it. So it increases your security. So that is the main point behind using private subnet to deploy your services, which are not needed to expose to the users, but just to you. So there are many things in VPC which you will learn in this lab, and like this lab is like pretty important. Like the concepts which you learn in this lab is like pretty important. So yeah, so let's start with AWS VPC. So what is AWS VPC? So let's say we have a company and we have on-premise servers. We don't use cloud. So we have 10 servers. Now how those servers will communicate to each other? Like they will have a network, right? So in the same way, if you move those 10 servers to AWS cloud or any cloud, then you will need a network through which they will communicate with each other, right? So that's a VPC. It is a virtual private cloud. So it is the same as real physical cloud, but it is on a cloud, like on-premise, but it is on cloud, so that's why it is virtual. So any doubt? And you might already know the AZ and AWS region, so I'm skipping that part. Okay, so now hands-on. So in this lab, we are going to implement this thing. So this is the user, like outside user, let's say a developer, and we have two subnets. One is public and one is private subnet, and we are deploying two EC2 instances. One is in private and second is in public, and we have these things here. One is internet gateway, route table, NACL. So at the end, so as a developer, I have deployed some service on my private like instance, which is deployed in private subnet, right? So I want to use it. So how will I use it? So I can't access this private instance directly because it is in private subnet. So I'll need to create a EC2 in the public subnet. I'll access this EC2 instance, and then using this EC2 instance, I'll use this. So this concept is called Bayesian host. And using this host machine, you can access this private instance. So we are going to implement this, and I'll explain this as we go in the hands-on. So any doubt with this diagram? Okay, so I already started the lab. So the first part in this is to create a new VPC. So in my console, I'll write VPC. So when you run the lab, you will have by default a VPC created for you. This is the default VPC which will be created for you by AWS. So we are going to create a new VPC for this lab to show like this whole concept. So let's create a VPC, and I'll name it as my lab 7 VPC. Now IPv4 CIDRs, do you know CIDR blocks? So so CIDR blocks are like basically so in the VPC, you will need to provide IP range, which are the IPs you want to allocate to this VPC. So let's say I'm writing here 10.0.0.0/20. So this IP range should be unique to this VPC. So no other VPC should have access to this IP range. And what is it? So I'll explain you. So there is a website called CIDR to IPv4. So first of all, I'll like paste this here. So you write a IP address here, and in the slash part, you either write 16, 20, 22, something like 24, something like this. And these are like, if you do 2 raised to power 32, I forgot the formula, yeah. So if I write 24, then if I write like 2 raised to power 24 minus 1, so whatever the answer is number of IPs I get. So for example, I write here 24 and click on calculate. So I'll get 256 as the answer. So I'll get IP range of 256. So my first IP will be of 10.0.0.0, and my last IP is like this one, 10.0.0.255, and in it will be like 10.0.0.1 and then 2, 3 until 25 if I write 24 here. But if I write 20 here and click on calculate, then I have 4096 IP addresses. So when you create a VPC, you should like know how many IP addresses will be like you'll be needing in the future, because you can't change it afterwards. So for my VPC, which I'm creating, I'm using this IP block. So it will be like, I'll have like 4096 IP address. The first IP will be like this one. So the next one will be like 10.0.0.1, 2, 3, 4 up to 255. Then I'll have 10.0.1.0 up to 255. then same as that until 10.0, 15.255. Yeah. 2 to the power n minus 1, yeah.
So when we write 20, the number of IPs should be less, right? So when we were 24, it was around 56. So it reduced by 4, but still the number of IPs are more. Now we change to 20.
I think the formula is 2 to the power 32 minus 24, like power minus 1. I'm not sure the formula was, but it is like that. You can like
Increase number of IPs will increase.
as you decrease, number of IP will be increased. Yeah. So any doubt in this? So like I'm using this IP address in my VPC, so I'm assuming that I'm not using this IP, like the range, anywhere else. Otherwise, like AWS will not let me use this IP range. So it should be unique for all VPC. So first thing to know is like your CIDR block should be unique. It shouldn't share the IP address block with any other VPC. So I'm creating 10.0.0.0. So I don't think I need to do anything else. So I'll just create the VPC. So when you create a VPC, it creates a route table and 0 subnets. So like it doesn't create subnets, but it creates a route table. So I'll move to route table later. So first of all, let's talk about subnets. So if I go here, I have like this subnets, but these are like from my default VPC, which is created by AWS. So right now I don't have any subnets for my VPC which are created. So by the way, what is subnet? Anyone can? So like you know AZ, right? So when you create a subnet, you like I'll show you here. So I'll select the VPC which are created. Now what is the name of the subnet which I want to set? So I'll write public US East 1A. So I have given this name as this. Then which AZ I want to allocate it to. So basically your subnets are like AZs for your VPC. So here I have to select which AZ I want to like select this for. So why we have AZs? Can you like why do we use multiple AZs in our VPC? To scale our application and also to like have backup powers. Because yeah, so if you deploy your applications in multiple subnets, then if one subnet goes down, like one AZ goes down, you still have other AZs available, right? So it increases the availability, and so that's why we have multiple subnets. So in the same way, so I have created this public US East 1 subnet, and it is referencing to this AZ. Now when you create a subnet, you have to provide the IP range for that subnet. So now for this subnet, I'll give IP range of this. So I'm giving 256 IP to this subnet. And what is the range of this IP? Can you tell? Like, what is the last IP? Yeah. So instead of 0, it will be 255, the last IP. So if I copy this, paste it here. So this is the first and this is the last IP. And it has 256 IP addresses. So I created one public subnet. Then I'll create one more. Public US East 1B. First was in 1A and now 1B. 10.0.0.2/24, and these IP shouldn't overlap as well. So like each subnet should have a unique IP address range. So I created 2 public subnets. Now I'll create 2 more private subnets. I'll like tell you later why I created 2, but for now like just know that like, I'm creating 2 private and 2 public subnets. So US East 1A, again 1A, and the IP range I'll give it to is 3/24, and one more. Okay, so I have created 4 private, like 4 subnets, 2 private and 2 public. The IP range is like 10.004/24 and then 3, 2, 1. So each subnet have unique IP address blocks in it, and they are referencing to AZ. So right now they are all same, like they just have different. Okay, so I think like yeah, I wrote it wrong. It will be like 3.0, 2.0, and 1.0. So now this will be like safe. They are not sharing any IP. So now it will be like 10.0.1.0, then 1 until 255, then here 2.0 to 255, and then same as all. So yeah. Okay, so it is over. So it shouldn't give this error. Oh, it should be 4. Okay, so 4 subnets. So right now they just have different name. Otherwise they are all same. All the subnets are same. So we have created 4 subnets and a VPC. So going back to this diagram here, we created a VPC and then we created 4 subnets so far. So the next concept is like, before going to next concept, let's just see one thing. So I'm going to EC2 dashboard, I'll launch an instance. So I'll name it as public instance or basic instance, whatever I want, like name you can give. I'm keeping this as like by default. Key pair, I'll assign the one which I already have. So here in this tab, network settings, I'll click on edit. Then I'll select the VPC which we just created. So which is like lab 7 VPC, and which subnet you want to assign it to, like the EC2 instance. So I'm assigning it to public US East 1 A subnet. Now I'll create a security group, and I'll keep everything same as it is. So in this EC2 instance, what I did is I have changed the VPC to the one which we just created, and I have assigned public US East 1 subnet to this EC2, so it will be deployed in that subnet. And I'm naming the security group for the EC2 instance as this one. So I'll click on launch and create an instance. So any doubt in this so far? Okay, so let's wait till it is created. No, so I did select the subnet, and then I realized that I'll have to I'll have to create this instance again because of I left one thing. So like something to learn. So the thing is, like when I created the instance, I didn't enable the public IPv4 address for this instance. So like when you create an instance, you need to enable the IPv4 address. I didn't. So like after the instance is created, you can't change it. So there is one thing to learn.
What was the option that you did not select?
Enable public IPv4 address. So I forgot to enable that, and now I'll have to create a new instance. I'll terminate this one. But know that if you are creating an instance and if you don't enable IPv4 address, then you can't change it afterwards. So you'll have to create a new instance later. And there is one hack for this as well, so I'll show it to you. Now I'll name it as public instance. Edit. So selecting the VPC. So here, this option, I didn't enable this one. But the hack to it is when you create a VPC, if I go to subnets, so I'll go to this subnet, go to action, edit subnet settings. So there's a tick mark, enable auto assign IPv4 address. So if I click on this and save it, it will always keep it enabled. And that's what it is in your by default public subnet. So when you deploy anything on public subnet, you're assuming it is assuming that you will need IP address, public IP address, because eventually you are going to use it publicly, right? So you can change this setting in your subnet, and then you don't need to enable this in here because it will be always enabled, not disabled. So there is one hack, one thing to remember here. I'll name security group as public instance SG. So VPC public US East 1A, and this, so I'll launch the instance. So far everything you know, how to deploy EC2 instance. So we just did that. So now wait till it is running. So do you think once the instance is running, I'll be able to access it? Because so why is that? No. So I'm not running the service, any service in the instance. So it has already 22 port allowed. So I can access the instance. But will I be able to access the instance? If no, then why? And if yes, then yeah. Okay. So one yes. Any other no or yes? Okay, I'll just open this. So far we created 2 subnets, one EC2 instance. We create a security group. We have a route table, and which thing we didn't configure as of now? It is internet gateway. So what is internet gateway? I'll show you once it is running. So I'll just explain it here now. So what is internet gateway? So basically this is your VPC, right? So whenever you want to access outside things, outside resources, or vice versa, outside things want to access anything internal, you will need an internet gateway. And it will be the first thing which every request comes through. So all the requests coming up from outside will come through the internet gateway to your VPC and then to your resources. So without internet gateway, everything is just private. You can't access anything outside the VPC. So once the instance is running, it is taking very long. But once the instance is running, I won't be able to SSH it because we don't have the internet gateway configured yet. Not sure why it is taking too long. Okay, so we can move until it is running. Okay, so any questions so far? You know what is VPC, you know what is internet gateway, and you already know how to deploy EC2 on AWS. So 3 things you have learned so far. Yeah, because it was already set up by AWS for you. Because in by default VPC, everything is configured.
So when we do not select a VPC, the default one is automatic.
Yeah. That's why when we created the EC2 instance, I went to edit and then selected the one which VPC I created. Otherwise it was by default VPC. So that. Okay, so until it is created, I'll just go to this internet gateway, create a new internet gateway. I'll name it as my lab 7 IGW internet gateway. I'll create this. So when you create an internet gateway, you need to attach it to a VPC. So I'll click on this. I'll select the one which I've created and then attach it. So now we have this step configured. So now if I have something in my private subnet, then they'll be able to access it. Or they should, or sorry? Yeah, so we'll come to that part. But so now again, will I be able to use the EC2 if I've configured internet gateway? Why?
I think we have to give some rule out of it.
Yeah, so next part is route table. So imagine like you have a VPC, now you have internet gateway, so you'll be able to redirect the traffic from outside world to inside and inside to outside, but you don't know where to redirect it. So what will, there's no point of it, right? Because if you don't know where to redirect, then it's of no use. So that's what route table does. So with route table, you know where to redirect your incoming request. So this is the functionality of route table. So these are very important concepts of VPC. If you give the solution architect exam, then you'll need to understand these concepts better. So route table will redirect the traffic to wherever you want. So now let's see if it is running. Something is wrong. Okay, so let's go back to VPC again. So we went to VPC and created the VPC. Then we created 4 subnets. Now coming to route table. So whenever you create a VPC, it will by default create a route table for you. But I don't like the default route table, because if you are creating public and private subnets, then I have a better way of creating this. So I'll just create a new route table. I'll name it as my lab 7 public. I'll write public lab 7 route table, attach it to this VPC, then create it. So I have this route table, and I'll also create one more, private lab 7 route table. So I have created 2 route tables. Why? Because it is easier to understand that way. So when you create a route table, first thing you need to do is go to subnet association and edit, and click on the subnet you want to associate that route table with. So in my public route table, I am associating 2 public subnets which I've created, and in my private route table, I am attaching 2 private subnet which I have created. So I have created 2 route tables and then associated public subnet and private subnet based on the name of the route table. But can you tell me if right now there is a difference between my public or private subnet? Are all subnets public or all are private? Then why is it is public and why is it private? Or it was just a guess?
No, I was guessing because initially you said you cannot access it because you haven't directed access.
Yeah. So as of now, all your subnets are private. And why is that? So I'll show you. Let's see if it is. Let's just create a new one. If it doesn't start, then I'll have to restart the lab, I think. So whenever this issue occurs, you can just stop the lab and then restart it, so it will fix it most of the time. So I'll name as public patient host. Keep at this one. Add it. So this time it is enabled because we enabled it. I hope this works. Yeah. So it is running, so I'll try to SSH it. So I already have my key pair, so I'll write SSH -i, my key pair EC2 -user @IP address. So I'm not able to connect to it. But I gave internet gateway and route table also, and still I'm not able to access this instance, even though it is in my public subnet. Why? Is there anything else I am forgetting? So when you said all the subnets are private subnets as of now, so there are no public subnets. Just the name, all these subnets are basically private right now. None of it is public. So how to make the public subnet public? So you go to route table. So I'll select this public route table. Click on, in the routes, I'll click on edit routes. So I'll select this. This is for all the traffic, and I'll redirect to, I'll go to internet gateway and select this internet gateway which we created for this VPC, and then save changes. So now whatever traffic comes to my internet gateway, it will be like route table will see like for my public subnet, I have this internet gateway. So here in this route table, public lab 7 route table, we have two policies. One is if my IP range is in this CIDR block, then they'll be able to access the local things. So like there are two EC2 instances in my subnet, so they'll be able to communicate with each other because they are in the same subnet, same CIDR blocks. So I added this more like one more rule here. So like anything comes to this like VPC, it will be routed to internet gateway. So like I have given a permission, so I have like configured the route table with internet gateway, so that like now my public subnets are like public actually because we have configured the route table. But for this one, it is private because any answer for this? Why are the private subnet private? Yeah, so like we have two route tables, right? I'll just delete this one. Okay, I can't delete the default one. Okay, so we have two route tables. In the public route table, I have associated public subnets which we have created, and I have given this route thing in this like route table. But in the private route table, I have two private subnets, but I haven't configured this thing. So this is basically a private subnet. So this thing like differentiate a public and private subnet, the route table. Yeah, so no, so like all the things in the public subnet can access it because it is in the same CIDR range. So 10.0.0.0/20, the CIDR of VPC. So they are in the same VPC CIDR range. So the public and private can access it. So I'll show you in the like hands-on. So it didn't work, but if I run it again, then it worked now because we configured the route table. So any questions so far? I know it is like pretty complex, the VPC part, but any questions? Like it is really easy to understand, but you'll understand it better if you implement it. So once you implement it, you will like understand better. So if no questions, then we can move further. Okay, so coming back to this diagram. So we configured the internet gateway. We configured the route table. Now we have two subnets. One is public and one is private. So far we have deployed our app in a public subnet. So the next step is to deploy your app in private subnet. So we'll create one more EC2. I'll name it private instance. Keep it as same as it is. I'll select the VPC and I'll select subnet here as private US East 1B, so the private subnet. So I'm not using public subnet now. So I'm disabling this option because if I want to deploy something in private subnet, then I don't want a public IP address for it because it's of no use, right? Because it should be private. So I'll name the SG as private instance SG and rest of it is same. So I'll launch it. Okay, so this private instance doesn't have IP address. So let's wait till it is running. And it is in this range. So remember we gave 10.0.3.0 for this like subnet private US East 1A. So this is the IP address for it. So it is running now. So I'm inside this EC2 instance as of now. So now I'll need to connect to this instance. So when we connect it to this instance, we use the public IP address, which is this one. We use this this IP address to connect to this public Bayesian host instance. So now I want to connect to this. So first of all, I'll need a key pair. So I'll get it from my machine. So I need to copy that key pair to EC2 instance because like I'll need to use the key pair to connect to the private instance. I'll just copy this. So I'm inside the EC2. So I'm creating a new file. My key pair.pem. I'll paste the content, save it. So when you download a PEM file, what do you do next? Yeah, chmod 400 my key pair. So we change the file permission. So I'm inside this EC2 instance. Now if I want to connect to this private instance, I'll copy the private IP address. So now I'm inside the private instance of this here. So any doubt? In this instance, because like this instance required that key pair, so it didn't have that, so I just copied it from my local. So now in order to access this, I created a public instance, I connected to it, and then I got access to this one. So let's say you have your backend running on Python or Java. It is deployed on this private instance. So you can't access it directly. You go to a public instance and then access it to that. So that's how you like access resources in the private subnet. But like we are in 2023, so there should be an easier way to do it, right? So if you go to net gateways, if you create a gateway, select the subnet private US East 1 and allocate a elastic IP. So do you know elastic IP? Okay, so one important thing for you. Have you noticed in your assignment 2 that whenever you stop the instance and rerun the instance, your public IP will change, right? So by default, whenever you restart your EC2 server, it will change the public IP address. But what if you want to keep it static? So if you want to do that, then what you do is go to elastic IPs, create a elastic IP address, and then attach it to that EC2 instance. So now your IP address will be of this elastic IP. But why you shouldn't use it? Because it costs like money to use it. So unless you need it, like then use it. Otherwise, like come to the console and check the public IP address and then use it. So for your term project, you can use elastic IP address because you might like need to restart the instance again and again. So if you connect it to elastic IP, then you'll be able to keep a static IP address and like it will save you some minutes. And you have 100 credits, so it's fine if it costs. So this is elastic IP, right? So when you create a net gateway, it also creates an elastic IP address, and that elastic IP address will be attached to this one. So basically, this net gateway will be in this public subnet, and it will be attached to this EC2. So here you don't have to manage the EC2 instance. You have an IP address, and using that IP address, you can like directly use the private instance. So it is the AWS way of like saving your time in the resources. So using the net gateway, it is behind the scene. It could be using an EC2 instance, which is attached, which has an elastic IP address, and it will redirect your request to the private instance. So basically, it is doing the same thing, but it is managed by AWS. So it is a managed thing. You don't have to manage the EC2 instance. So there are two ways you learned how to access the private instances. One is to create an EC2 instance, which is called Bayesian host, and one is to create a net gateway, and you can use any way to access your private instance. And these concepts will be used in the assignment 3. So if you have not read it, then it follows kind of same architecture for your assignment. So any questions so far?
How is the public subnet access to private subnet?
So they are in the same VPC. So like before you came, I mentioned like if I go to VPC, so VPC has IPv4 range of this. So if I copy this, so this VPC has IP range of 10.0 till 10.15.255. Now my public subnet has IP range of 10.0 to this thing till this thing. So it lies in the CIDR blocks of my VPC. So basically the simple answer is like they're under the same VPC, but behind the scene is like they are under the same IP address CIDR. So that's how public and private subnet interact with each other. Any question?
So if you use NAT gateway instead of internet gateway, that's all?
No. NAT gateway is used to access your private resources, which are there in your private subnets. So basically, the like main role of NAT gateway is to give access to like outside users of your private instance. So like again, like if you have backend service running on private instance, then you won't create a Bayesian host, but you'll create a NAT gateway. And I think it is free up to some limits, so it's cheaper to use that instead of EC2. So if no one have any questions, then we can move further. So you understand this concept, right? Because next one will be a little bit complex in this. Okay. So next is this thing. So everything is same, but now we have RDS inside the private subnet. Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot to do that. Okay, so I'm inside my public EC2 right now. So let's this time I'll create Apache instead of Nginx. So I'm running like installing an Apache server. So I'm running Apache server and it runs on port 80. So if I do curl localhost, then it gives like this HTML. So I'll go to this public Bayesian host, go to security group, edit inbound rules. I'll add port 80 so that I can access it. Save it. So now my port 80 is like exposed to outside world. So I'll go back to this instance, copy this, paste this, and then now I can access the port 80 of my EC2 instance. So do you know security groups? So why do we use security groups?
For controlling the internal traffic.
Yeah, so controlling the incoming traffic to our instance, like to our resources, right? Right? Okay, so we use security groups to control the traffic coming inside and going outside our resources, right? So what is NACL? Yeah, here NACL. So this is my NACL. So NACL or network ACL, whatever you call it. So it is a second firewall which is at the VPC level. So you have security groups at the resource level. You have security groups for RDS, EC2, anything like which are the resources. But NACL, network ACL, network access control list, NACL is like firewall for your network. So in the inbound rules, you have to give a rule number here. So lower the rule, higher the precedence. So if the rule is 99, then it will have higher precedence than this rule. So if there is deny for this rule and it has allow for same rule, then it will be denied because lower the rule, higher the precedence. So I'll create a rule 99, port 80, deny and save it. So right now I have created a rule which says that deny all HTTP like port 80 coming from outside like 0.0. So now if I refresh this, it won't work. It will time out. So here NACL, it is actually at this level, VPC level. So by default, it allows everything. Here it says allow everything. So by default, NACL will allow everything, all the traffic. But you want to disable anything like a second firewall at the network level, then you can use NACL. And there is one difference between security group and NACL. So when you go to security group and give inbound rules port like 80, then it allows inbound and outbound. You don't need to give outbound here. So like if a traffic is coming to your EC2 instance via port 80 to your like inside your EC2 instance, then it will be able to go out of your EC2 instance. So it is stateless. If you add anything in inbound rules, then it will like automatically allow it outbound. But the thing with NACL is it is stateful. If I have like, so if I delete this or make it allow in the outbound, so in the outbound, if I deny port 80, and now if I refresh it, I should like the outbound, I shouldn't like, it will block all the outbound traffic and it will allow the inbound. Not sure why it worked, it shouldn't. I think I'll have to delete this rule first. So like traffic is not going outside. I'm not sure why it didn't work, but I'll go through this after the lab and then I'll ping back the solution to the Teams channel. Yeah, so basically it is stateful and security groups are stateless. So know the difference. There could be a question in the exam as well. So what's the difference between the NACL and security groups? So it is a second firewall for your application, like for your VPC whole. Okay, so we have configured everything so far. Internet gateway, VPC, route table, NACL, security group, EC2 instance. Now how to deploy RDS in private subnet. So let's just first go to RDS. And so it is the NACL. In security groups, we allow ports, right? So at network level, you manage ports using NACL. So that's why I mentioned like NACL is for network and security group is for resource. Okay, so RDS. So how to create RDS in private subnet? So to create RDS in private subnet, first of all, you will need to create a subnet groups. So I'll go to that. I'll private subnet group. I'll select the VPC which we have created in AZ, 2 AZs, and in the subnet I'll select my private subnet. I think it is this one and 4. So these two are the private subnets. So I'll select this one. So first of all, why we need private like subnet groups in the first place for RDS? So RDS has features such as automatic scaling and then disaster recovery as well. It has inbuilt. So like when you create RDS and if you select multi-AZ deployment, then it will deploy your RDS to multiple AZs. And where it will deploy, so whatever you give in the security group, like subnet groups. So that's why we need a subnet group if you want to deploy it to multi-AZs or if you want to deploy it in a private like subnet. So there are 2 conditions here. So that's why you need a subnet group in RDS. So I'll go to databases, create DB. So there's one easy create option, but we don't do that here. So standard create. Now you have these many options of RDS. So RDS is a engine, database engine. It is not a database. So you can, it gives you like this many different types of engines. So first is AuroraDB, and next is AuroraDB with the version of Postgres, MySQL, MariaDB, etc. So can you tell me which one is the faster one? Is MySQL faster than Postgres, or vice versa? Which DB is faster? Yeah, Postgres is faster than MySQL. And is AuroraDB faster than Postgres? It is of Amazon, so yes. So there are two versions of it. So like this version is 15 times faster than this one, and 5 times faster than this one. So AuroraDB is 15 times faster than MySQL and 5 times faster than Postgres. And with gate power comes gate bill, so it is costly. So it is very costly, but it by default has replication feature and backup features. So when you create a AuroraDB, it will by default create 2 deployments of it. You will get a read replica and a master DB. What is that? It is for self-learning part. So just like get into that later. So it is basically, it is very useful and at a high scale. So we'll go with the MySQL version. Now I'll use the free tier template to create the database. I'll name it as my RDS. Username is this, make it secure. So make your password secure, but for the lab, I'll use root 1234. You can auto-generate it as well. Then if you select free tier option, then it will automatically click on this burstable class, which is like DB-T3 micro or T2 micro, which are the small EC2 instances, which has 1 GB of RAM and 2 CPUs. But if you select the dev or production DB, then you can upscale your database. Then I'll keep this as it is. I'll disable this for the lab because it will take some time to deploy the app. So I'll disable this auto scaling feature. Now, RDS gives you inbuilt feature to make this connection. So like you don't have to do anything. You just connect to EC2 instance and select your public Bayesian host, and like AWS will handle this part. But if you want to learn how to do it, then do it in your own way. So that's what we'll do. So don't connect EC2 to compute resources. On which VPC you want to deploy. So it's our VPC which we have created. Then here, DB subnet groups. So when you want to like deploy your DB, then you'll have to have a subnet group. Otherwise, it won't let you like deploy your RDS. So that's why we created a subnet group first and then database later. Public access. So do you want public to have access to this RDS? Yes or no? So for our like case, no. If you put yes, then it will give you a public host name. If you write no, then it will give you a private host name. So security group for the RDS. I'll my RDS SG. I'll select US East 1. I'll uncheck this, enable automatic backup. I don't want to encrypt it. Okay, so these are the configurations so far. So any question here? If no, then I can move forward. So it will take around 2 to 3 minutes. It could take 5 as well. So let's wait till it is created. So any question in this diagram so far? Right now we don't have this connection, but we do have this thing.
We have a public IP for RDS, but although I'm not redirecting it, so still it's secure.
If you have public IP, then if that IP is exposed, then it is not secure.
But through the NACL, it's going only to the public subnet.
No. So NACL is like a firewall. Yeah, so you can stop the outside access of that port like 306 and you can deny it. So that way, like let me show you this way. But then like if you don't want to give access to public, then what's the point of having IP address in the first place? But yeah, so like if you want to do that, then 99, we have deployed MySQL, so it is on port 3306. We can deny it. So now if you have public IP address, you don't want anyone to access it, then yeah, here it is. So any doubt in this diagram so far? No, okay. So like once the RDS is created, it will give you an endpoint and a port. So we'll wait for it. Okay, meanwhile, I think it will take some time. So meanwhile, I can explain you your assignment. Okay, so in the A3, I'll give you the gist of it, not line to line, okay? So in your assignment 3, it asks for you to know how to implement a VPC, so like how to create a VPC, which you already know now. And then it asks for 2 public facing services. So if we go to this diagram, then if it is in public subnet, then it is public facing because you have IP address, public outside like world internet can access your resources, so it is called public facing. This is not public facing because it is not accessed by public directly. So this is called public facing. That's why when you create a load balancer, it asks for, do you want to create a public facing load balancer or internal load balancer? So it is the concept behind it. So public facing services, two services. So you have to create one EC2 instance and one EC2 instance which has Redis installed on it. What is Redis? Redis? Yeah, so it is a caching DB. So it is key value pair DB. It is really good database. It runs on your memory, on your RAM. That is why it is very fast. It is used to, mostly it is used to cache your data, but it is also used as a database. So they have expanded a lot, and it is like the best, most loved database in terms of developers. So it is also my favorite database. So I use Redis everywhere. So it is like very easy to learn how to use Redis, and it is very good. So you should learn Redis. Next is private subnet RDS. So you have to create a RDS in private subnet. Now you know how to deploy it. So so now your public subnet EC2 instance have to have access to this RDS. So you need to do some things here to get the access of RDS, and it is public here. So your EC2 can directly access this other EC2. So you have to develop these API. One is store product. I think it is, I'm assuming it is like storing the data on your DB, and then list product is fetching your data from DB, and then store product is storing the like data on your Redis, and again list is like fetching your data from Redis. So 4 APIs. This concepts of public subnet and private subnet. Deploying your app, you already know. And in this, you have to give your access key, secret access key, session token ID. So all the things you get from here, you have to pass it in this API. Any reason why the scripter needs this thing? Yeah, so scripter will need this because the scripter is like outside to your AWS cloud, right? Everyone has their own AWS cloud here. So he is outside entity, he can't access your private things in your cloud. So to do that, he'll need your access key, secret key, and token ID. So that way he will mimic himself as you and then access your private resources. So that's the reason behind it. And I think everything is straightforward. Also, like, do read this part because it is really important. If you save your file into some other folder, then you'll get 0 even if your code is running perfectly. So yeah. Okay, so it is created. I have my host name. So let's install MySQL to EC2. So this is my public subnet EC2. So I'll run this command to install MySQL client in this EC2. Now if I execute this command, MySQL -h -p is for port, -u is for user, and -p is for password. So it was root 1234. Right now it will give this error because right now I don't have any connection with my RDS and EC2. Okay, so how to make that connection? This connection. So first of all, we'll go to security groups. This is my RDS SG, so I'll open this, edit inbounds. I'll give 3306 inbound to my public instance security group. Oh yeah. If you write MySQL here, it will automatically 306, so you can do that as well. So I'm assigning this MySQL inbound rule to this SG, which is of my instance, public instance. So I'm allowing inbound rules from that instance, saving it. Now I'm going to my instance. It was, I think, this one. Let me be sure of it. So in the outbound, I'll write MySQL. I'll add a new rule. And I'll select the RDS SG, save it. And I selected the wrong SG here, so I'll just change it. Oh, sorry, I'm changing the outbound. So in your RDS, in the inbound rules, I'm allowing 3306 traffic from my instance, and in my instance outbound, I'm allowing 3306 from RDS. So I'm doing those two things. And the next thing which I have to do is create a network interface. And then select my SG group. So I think it was this one. And that's all you need to configure the connection. So if I go here and write root 1234, so -p here. It is not able to find the MySQL sock. Let me do it from here. I already SSH in this, so let's move to the next part, RDS. So we'll host a database and then maybe in private subnet and then try to access it from public. So when you want to host an instance RDS in private, then you'll have to create a security groups. So subnet DB subnet groups. So I'll select the VPC which we have created. Easy is as 1A, 1B, and these two are my private subnets. I'm hoping it should work, but okay. Description. Okay, so I'll create it. So lab subnet SG is created. Now let's go to database. Create database. We won't use easy create, so standard create. I'll be using MySQL. I'll keep this as here. So like few students face issue in creating the RDS, so you should select the burstable instance, and it will be fine. You won't face the issue. I think it like the role doesn't allow other instance than the burstable, so I always use free tier because it's okay. So identifier, admin, password, make it secure, but I'm setting up root 1234. Keeping everything same. So so one thing here, so like if you want to create like connect the EC2 instance to your RDS, you can just do it from here. It is like that, but we'll do it in a different way. So this is the easy way, like connect to an EC2 resource. So just create one EC2 instance before creating the RDS and then select that instance. It's like simple. So here I'll select this VPC and subnet group as the one which we have created. Public access, no. And security group, MySQL RDS SG. Everything should be the same. I'll click this as no because it will be like faster. So other than networking, we have not changed anything. Everything is by default. I'll also disable the auto scaling. Okay, everything looks good. Create instance. So doing these steps, we have deployed RDS on private subnet. And why did I create two subnets? To create a subnet group for database, you have to have two subnets at least. So if you want to host RDS in private subnet, then you'll have to have at least two private subnets. Yeah. So that's why two subnets. So let's just wait. Yeah.
When you're creating two different subnets, so will you create them two different ACs?
You should.
This is just for RDS, or is it like two for all?
No, so like two is not a like defined number. You can create one or how many you want based on your use case. But for RDS, it requires at least two. That's why. Oh yeah. So that's why I created two. And like you should create multiple subnets on different ACs because why? Yeah. So high availability. So you can host your resources to multiple ACs, and if one goes down, there'll be different like one. And if you go like full on, then you can deploy it on different region, not even AZ. So like if one region goes down, you have different like region available. And this comes under the disaster recovery, so DR. So you should also have a plan of DR when so like just in case if some AZ goes down. And that's why like you can use, I'm using console right now, but you can use CloudFormation script So like if one AZ goes down, you have your CloudFormation script. You can just deploy your things to different AZ using CloudFormation script. So it is like handy thing. So like in production or in industry, it will be like the by default step of creating a CloudFormation script for everything. You won't use console or like the UI to create the resources, because like if something goes down, you'll have to do it manually. So with just one script, you can do so many things. So
What exactly is meant by connecting the RDS to EC2 instance here? Like, can't we just directly call the RDS from our instance using the private IP?
so yeah, so that's what we are doing. But like it won't allow to connect to EC2 instance just by using private IP. You have to use like you'll have to do some configuration for your EC2. So you'll have to do configuration in security groups. Allow the security groups of RDS to be able to connect to EC2. You'll have to open the port of 3006 to your RDS and then do the configuration, which I'll show you. Yeah.
Vice versa.
Yeah. So this is a step like which you have to do. Okay, so RDS is deployed now. So it won't be accessible as of now on EC2. Let's see. I'll install MySQL on EC2. So MySQL -h. So as of now, I can't connect to my EC2 instance because I did not do the connecting part of instance and RDS. So Amazon has your back and you can just do it from here. So set up EC2 connection. I'll create Bashan, like select on this, continue. So what it will do is like in this VPC, it will create a RDS EC2 one security group and one for instance. It will make the connection so that they both can talk to each other. And let it be. So we have created two security groups. I'll open that.
Just while creating that RDS instance, we connected these two instances, right? Why they were stuck?
Yeah, so it didn't work. That's why. So I'll go to security groups. So now we have so many security groups. So this security group is created by this and this. So I'll open this one. In the outbound rules of RDS, it is allowing port this to this security group, which is the security group of EC2. And if I go to that, yes, this one. So in the inbound rules, it is allowing this. So just like you said, we have to do something to make the connection. So this is what it is doing. So like in RDS, allow outbound 3062 security group of EC2. In EC2, allow this security group of RDS. Now let's see if it is accessible. And it is. And if I write, it works. So that's how you make this work. So any questions for this lab so far? Okay, so for conclusion, now you know what is a VPC, why do we need a internet gateway, how to configure route tables, and why do we need route tables. So basically it is to segregate the route, like private subnet and public subnet, and where your like traffic will go will be defined by route table. NECL is like your second firewall, which is at network level. So whenever traffic comes in, it will first go through NECL, then security group, and then EC2 instance. And this is like, as it says in the private subnet, you shouldn't have a public IP address, and it should be accessed via a Bayesian host, or I forgot the name, net gateway. So I think now you'll be able to finish your lab assignment 3. Okay, so if no one has any question, then we can conclude this lab.
When will the API be available for this?
I'm not sure about it, but it should be available like 3 or 4 days before your deadline. Yeah. Okay, so thank you.